Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women of Oakland first virtual annual scholarship fundraising event. I am Morgan Brown, the co-founder and president at Oakland Realty in Vancouver, British Columbia. It is so great to see all these familiar names and faces here today, as well as some new ones. And thank you so much for coming and being a part of this exciting new opportunity. From Vancouver to Montreal, we welcome you and thank you for being here today. When we first started Oakland, we made a promise to remain an inclusive community where everyone is welcome regardless of their background, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs. Creating a diverse and representative community has always been at the forefront of our company and something that we work to improve every single day. I first founded the Women of Oakland as a way to bring light to celebrate women in business, as well as bring light to the challenges that many of us face. At WU, we choose to honor the purpose and power of women in our industry and celebrate them as they deserve. While women have made progress in the industry, men remain the majority of top producers. We as women have come a long way, but there is still so much work to be done to reduce this discrepancy amongst genders. In addition to pre-existing barriers, the past years have brought on a new wave of challenges for women in Canada. Since March 2020, we have seen the pandemic disproportionately affect women in business and career-related progress. In the past year, many women have lost their work with 55% off layouts, but being female occupied roles. In addition to layoffs, women have been set back for roles to care for children amongst daycare closures and children care concerns. After working so hard to get to where we are today, it is heartbreaking to see this pandemic force some women to take a step back. 4 times as many women as men drop out of the labor force in September, roughly 865,000 women compared to 216,000 men. This validates predictions that the impact of these COVID-19 pandemic on women and the accompanying childcare and school crisis is severe. So this year, when it came to planning this International Women's Day event, we could not ignore the chance to bring light to the issues and create a new opportunity for women who are interested in pursuing real estate career in Canada. Our WU scholarship will grant several individuals the funding and opportunity to pursue a real estate career at the institution of choice and aim to provide the means for someone to enter the industry with the tools to succeed. Personally, this past couple years has been interesting. I've had more career-driven women, entrepreneurs, and women in corporate reach out to me directly and ask for my advice on how to juggle work and family while trying to continue to pursue their career dreams. I personally have lost a lot of clients to a couple of these key components, from women who were afraid to tell their clients that they're pregnant and the fear of losing business, to women who are struggling with male counterparts at work who are placing caps on their growth. I have had both of those struggles in my career, both in losing clients because I was becoming a mother and had male counterparts misjudge my capacity. Not only has this been heartbreaking and discouraging, I have to say that it has created a purpose, and this is what validates what we're trying to do here today. These situations have made me passionate that everyone has to change this social perception that was placed on females from generation to generation. Right now, I'm sitting here at 37 weeks pregnant with my second child. I am having a baby girl, and my mindset is much different than before. I hope that she is proud of what her mother has done and will do. I hope that we have created something here today that breaks that boundary that are so obvious and clear. But most of all, I hope that she will not have to be placed in a box and people do not give her a ceiling. And truly, she will be equal to her counterpart or a male in whatever she pursues. All the ticket sales and donations from today's WOO event will go towards a scholarship, and we will be Oakwyn will be matching all the proceeds earned. The WOO scholarship is our way of empowering women in real estate and helping to ensure that financial ability does not hinder opportunity. As some of you might know, I started my real estate career with a scholarship. It was through this scholarship that I learned how to approach the industry and begin the career that has led me here today. Being able to provide another woman with this opportunity means the world to me, and I cannot wait to share this with all of you. Open to all Canadian women looking to pursue real estate career, this scholarship marks an exciting opportunity for WOO to pioneer something truly life-changing for an individual. Working together, we continue to push to transform the industry from the inside out. We are so fortunate to have an incredible group of Canadian female powerhouses with here today on our panel, as well as an incredible special speaker. It is our job to support one another and encourage each other to think big and then go bigger. So understanding the importance of collaboration and support for both men and women, I am so proud of the work that we have done in the past years. A big thank you to everyone who have supported Oakwyn and helped us become the company that we are today. It is truly amazing that our team has made this much of an impact. I'm going to hand it off to our co-founder, our COO of Oakwyn, Arlene Chang, to give a warm welcome to our panelists. Thank you everyone for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you, Morgan, for being the inspiration for this event, where we get the great opportunity to bring remarkable women together and celebrate our successes, and also continue to forge new paths for women in business. Today, I get the honor of moderating a panel of award-winning, top-producing real estate agents from across Canada. Following the panel, our keynote speaker, the Honourable Janet Austin, the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, will close this remarkable virtual event by sharing her insight after years of leadership for women. I'm excited to introduce our panelists for today. We have Noella Ingabire, who was born in Kigali, Rwanda, and began her career in flipping real estate. It was her own female realtor that encouraged her to become an agent. And since 2007, she's been passionate about the business and also home ownership, particularly helping women of color achieve their goals in owning their own homes. Frances Dares is the founding partner and owner broker of her own brokerage, Urban Upgrade and New Infills. She began her career in 2006 as a solo agent and pivoted her focus to become a managing broker and work towards building a team, which has provided her the ability to serve more people in her community. Amy Assad began her career at 19 years of age and has quickly risen to the top of the Montreal market and covering various aspects of real estate, including commercial, residential, leasing, and recently doing her own real estate developments. Now in her 20th year, she's running a team of 19 agents and feels like this is just the start of even more growth and helping more people in the coming years.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. So my story of how I started in real estate, I would say actually real estate found me. I remember in 2006, it was a Sunday morning and I was watching a TV show and there was a commercial on TV about how you can flip houses and make money. I was in the fashion industry at that time, so I wanted something different. And I told my partner at the time, I'm like, you know what, let's go to the event. Let's go see what it's about. I met a real estate agent at that event and she basically started showing us properties, me and my partner. And I fell in love with it. And she was like, you know what, you're gonna be a great agent. You should get into the business. And that's how I started.
Great.
2007, yeah.
How old for you, Frances?
Well, actually, it was 2006 for me as well. And my partner, my current partner, actually was the one who encouraged me to get into real estate. At the time, I was in university and studying, and I wasn't entirely sure if it was the right fit or if I was going in the right direction. And he was in real estate, or had been for quite a few years, and suggested that I give it a try. He thought it would be a good fit for me. And so on a little bit of a whim, I actually jumped in and took the course and started, and found out that I just loved it. And it absolutely was the perfect fit for me. And I honestly can't imagine my life any other way now.
And Frances, you're working in the Calgary market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give the listeners today a little bit of a background of what Calgary real estate is like, and what it's been like working through COVID?
Yeah, for sure. The Calgary market's definitely a little bit different than the other major markets within Canada. We tend to be a little bit more boom bust, or at least we have been in the past. We'll see if that changes in the future. But because we're definitely an oil and gas town, and that's been our source of the major focal point and the major source of our economic growth for the past however many years. We do tend to follow the oil and gas cycles. And so when oil and gas is really strong, our market is really strong. And when oil and gas is a little bit weaker, we tend to be a little bit weaker. And we have started to diversify a lot more over the last 10, 15 years or so. But definitely our market tends to be a little bit more interesting. And certainly we haven't seen like the consistent and significant growth that Toronto or Vancouver has seen. Our marketplace is definitely more local. We don't tend to have a lot of influx of foreign money or foreign investors. We do have a lot of in-migration, but it's not so much just an influx of capital. It's the people themselves that are moving to Calgary as well. So yeah, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Hmm.
And Noella, how about yourself? What's Toronto real estate like as a kind of juxtaposition to what Calgary's like?
I think it's different because I do actually have a client right now that has a property in Calgary, and we are trying to find something to buy. And he's like, oh my God, I can't even get half of that in Calgary, like even the appreciation. So the market has definitely evolved from pre-COVID to now. Pre-COVID, Toronto is very vibrant. Lots of, like right now, there will be lots of activities going on. So it's making people really want to live in the center core in the city. So we definitely saw a shift of people moving outside the city. Like my last 3 transactions have been people moving outside. So I've been definitely driving a lot outside the city because, living in the condo used to be a lifestyle of people wanting to, walk to work or, be able to be in the city because of, all the fun events that's happening, So definitely there is a shift. The prices have not gone down. The prices definitely went up. Last year, there was a little bit of a shift in the condo market. We did definitely saw a decline because of people wanting to move outside and not seeing the value. But as the prices of homes are becoming unaffordable, those people are starting to kind of say, you know what, maybe I'll still stay in the city. I'll buy a condo in the city just to get my foot in the door. I'm finding buyers are scared that in the next few years, they won't be able to afford anything in Toronto because we do have a lot of foreign money coming in. Despite of COVID, people are still managing to come and invest in the city, just hoping that in the near future, life will go back to normal.
Yeah. Did they have any foreign buyers tax or anything like that in Toronto?
We do. It was implemented in 2017, and there was just a little bit of a shift, but not really enough to correct the market that they're hoping to be corrected. They are implementing another one, I think, actually this year. It's supposed to be sometime in June. I'm not sure exactly what the implementations are. And I don't really think it's going to make a difference, to be honest, because I think foreign buyers are kind of used to spending a lot of money, like maybe in countries like England, in the US, and our dollar is kind of not as strong as those places. So I think when they come here, it's still cheaper from what I hear, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Noella, for Calgary, did COVID impact kind of, the market pace there as well?
Yeah, we saw, so when COVID first hit, we saw, pretty as close to a real estate shutdown as, we would probably ever see. For a couple of months, activity was very, very, very low. We saw a lot of people sort of take their homes off the market, or, keep their homes on the market, but there weren't a lot of buyers. And so for a couple of months, we saw sales come down dramatically. Like, I think it was 45% in April and 65% in May, year over year, something like that. But then, you know what, our market bounced back really, really quickly. And, almost right away in June, July, we saw sales tick up substantially. And then we just kept picking up pace, and our market is hustling for sure. We're up like at least 100%, compared. Actually, I think we're up like 400% year over year, but that's comparing to like a really slow time. But we're up like at least 100%, to like what we would typically have seen over the last couple of years, around in this season. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of properties selling. Properties are selling really quickly right now. And we've seen substantial price improvements, not all the way through our market. It's definitely been concentrated in our more entry-level price segments, most specifically under $500,000 and $600,000 for like single family. We're a little bit more suburban than Toronto, so we have a downtown core with lots of condos, but we also have a lot of single family neighborhoods that are still very accessible to the inner city. And similar to what you were describing, Noella, we definitely saw a shift last year for people looking to kind of escape the city and go into. Essentially, the trends were bigger homes with more privacy. And so, we definitely saw as, everybody started working from home, that there was less need to be sort of tied to the inner city or tied to downtown. And we saw a lot of people transitioning to like way more suburban environments than they probably would have ever considered 2 or 3 years ago. And that's trickled into our rural markets. Like, we have a really strong rural market right now, and that's historically always been kind of softer for us.
Yeah.
And even like the outlying towns just outside of Calgary, their markets are on fire as well. And it's ultimately people looking for big homes that are affordable because they're no longer having to be so close to downtown.
Do you have cottages in Calgary?
Not as much. We have some like a little bit further out, but it's not as big of a market as
it's crazy. I think the prices went up like 200%. It's insane.
Yeah, well, and we've heard, that like all the waterfront, whether it be, we have a number of community lakes in our city, and waterfront has been really popular since COVID hit. Any kind of homes that have pools or like sport courts or like local kind of amenities for the kids have been really popular. But the biggest thing is just people wanting bigger homes and more space because they're just cooped up and need some extra room now that everybody's at home all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a common theme, just listening to your stories in your markets and what's happening here in BC. It's all kind of this wave of activity because of COVID. And so we're so grateful and lucky to be in this kind of industry that we've been able to help a lot of people make that transition and help them through their real estate transactions. What unique challenges have you personally faced as being a woman in the real estate industry? Noella, do you have?
I do. The one that comes to mind, actually, it's happening to me right now. I'm finding that in the pre-construction market, a lot of men are kind of in the top tier with builders. I don't know if they are spending more money on marketing or, just kind of have an edge, I would say, because with COVID, now a lot of people are finding that investing in pre-construction is probably the best way to go. And I'm trying to find a unit for my client in any project. I literally have to go to one of the top agents that's a man to get into the project. So, that's kind of like, I saw that about 10 years ago when I was a new agent, but I didn't think that even now that I still have to prove myself to these builders. Yes, maybe I'm not doing as much volume because I do a lot of resale, but the fact that men are still kind of at the forefront, it's a bit of a challenge.
Mm-hmm. And what's been your response to kind of deal with that?
It's tough. I think unless women, we go into, the high positions that, become builders, and really support one another. most of the events I go to, there is 100 men and there is 10 women. I mean, there's lots of agents that are females, but I think when you get into investments, not as many women as are into investments, because it's a different ball game, right? It's a lot of work. You need connections and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm always trying to push myself, to find different projects, different things for my clients to buy, for them to create wealth, because that's kind of what I believe in real estate investments. So I mean, recently I called one of a friend of mine that I know in the business. And I said, this project sold out. Did you get any allocation? He says, yeah, of course, we got so many. And I said, I wanted just one unit and I couldn't get one unit. He says, well, you can get one. You just have to go through me, give me a part of your commission and I'll get you in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know, it's better to get something than nothing, but I definitely want to push and see how to get into the door. So I found the VP of the project on Facebook and I messaged him personally. And I said, hi, how are you? I met you at one of your projects a few years ago. I'm trying to get a unit for my client. How do I make that happen? So I'm hoping that will, make a change, that maybe we have to kind of go through the back door and kind of push and get our name known. And that's what I'm doing.
That's great. I love that how persistent you are in helping try to work for your client and get them, a piece into that project, because it takes a lot of persistence and grit to kind of win in sometimes very competitive markets like pre-sale and projects and things like that. Noelle, how about yourself? Have you faced any unique challenges?
I've been very fortunate through my career to not have had issues such as Noelle has described. Like for me, there's within the Calgary marketplace, there's always been such a presence of female realtors and strong female realtors. There's always been a role model. There's always been, like evidence and proof that like women can succeed in this industry and do well. And I haven't really faced a lot of obstacles or a lot of challenges with respect to like what you're describing. What I have experienced is a little bit more and not happening all of the time, but certainly when I was doing a lot of business in transactions, I found that there were certain agents that were really challenging to deal with, that they would treat, trying to cooperate on a transaction to put it together, if they represented the seller and I represented the buyer or vice versa, that, they would treat another agent who was a male completely differently than they would treat me as a female agent. And I definitely found that like a lot of stronger, like really dominant male agent personalities would try to like walk all over me as a female agent and really try to like bully the transaction and bully the situation. And that was 100% because I was a woman, and wasn't something that they just like behaved that way in every transaction, because I had seen it and witnessed them deal with other agents within our team and act completely differently. And so that's certainly something that was frustrating and has been frustrating and is probably still frustrating for female agents in our community when they're dealing with specific agents. But the one thing that I have noticed is that those agents have developed a really poor reputation because female agents are such a strong presence in our marketplace. And word gets around. And so, it's funny that what goes around comes around, and that, I think those agents are actually, they almost have set themselves up a little bit for failure long-term, because, in a marketplace, your marketplace might be a little bit different, Noella, where it's like such a strong seller's market and you kind of just do what you have to do. But Calgary has had a weak market for the last 5 years while oil has been down, and we're only now approaching a really strong market. And in a tougher market, agents absolutely can, choose to work with some agents and not choose to work with others. Or, you as a buyer's agent, you can have that upper hand, and, it changes the power structure, right? And so that's probably been the biggest struggles I've faced, is just, how to deal with an agent on the other side of the transaction where you're doing your best to try to be collaborative and cooperative and put that deal together for your client. And you've got somebody who just does not share that same attitude on the other side.
What type of, what have you done to try to deal in those situations? What kind of tactics or things, either one of you, because I'm sure both of you have experienced that type of bullying or that type of, agent that treats you differently than others. What kind of tactics have you employed?
I've tried a couple of tactics because it was a little bit of like feel it out. And I found like some tactics worked with some agents and didn't work with others. So, through the course of just experience, I found that trying a couple of different things was helpful. With some agents, I 100% had to just be really aggressive back and just like stand my ground and almost just like demonstrate right off the hopper that I wasn't going to be pushed around. And demonstrate like my knowledge, my expertise, and my experience right off the hopper. And I found that for some agents that helped them to just sort of back down. They might still have been, rude and abrasive and whatnot, but it stopped the bullying aspect of it. Whereas with other agents, I found I actually had to play like really nice and try to just be like a little bit more covert with almost like the mind games. And it's really sad to say in this day and age that you have to almost like play mind games to get what you need. But for some agents, I found that that was the only way that we were able to get these deals put together, was to just, play really nice. And, for every, for every bit of like negative feedback that we got from the other side, we would just be extra nice and extra sweet and just work our way through it. And so it's a little bit hit and miss.
Yeah. How about yourself, Noella?
Oh, definitely has happened to me. I had a listing in this really hot market in Toronto. And when the market was shifting a few years ago, I couldn't sell it. There was a flip that I did for my clients. And these male agents in that area, they tried to bully me. Like, how dare you try to price this home like this? What do you think you're going to get? I said, don't worry. If you have a buyer, please bring the buyer. If you don't have a buyer, I do not need to know what you have to say. So, sometimes you need to put people in timeouts, very kind of like professionally, because some people just don't want you to, I don't know if they don't want you to do well, but if they haven't done it, they think it's not possible. So I have done things that most people said I couldn't do. So I just kind of let my numbers speak for themselves. And once I sell it, then I kind of send an email and say, thank you so much for showing it, but I did get the number that I was looking for. So definitely it's tough. I have dealt with some difficult men in the business, but my mom is a very strong woman and she does not give up. She was in business. And so I know when to stand my ground and not give up.
Perfect. What advice would you give, Frances, for fellow women who may be feeling like they're struggling with sexism on the job, not necessarily even in the context of in our industry, but in any industry or any facet of life where they feel like they're being mistreated in any way?
Yeah, I guess that's a tough one because real estate is sort of so, like in general, so open to women that, my advice to somebody specifically in real estate would be, if you're dealing with a challenging situation where you're dealing with sexism, my first reaction would probably be, well, see what other opportunities are out there, because there's so many opportunities for women to succeed. Like if your brokerage is not giving you the right treatment or not, fostering an environment where you can perform your best, you know what, maybe you want to look at another brokerage, or if like the team that you're working with, same thing, look for somebody else, because there's just so many opportunities out there. But I also acknowledge that not every industry is so, open to women's success. And so, just is like such a positive environment where people can grow. And so I would say in other industries, it probably depends on what you're dealing with. If it's coworkers, I think you could probably, maybe go to your superiors and talk through the situation and try to find a way to, I guess, adjust the culture to be more supportive. If it's an industry where it's like, it's your superiors that are the challenge, honestly, I'm not sure. I guess if there's alternatives where you can go elsewhere, or, if you need to be the one to kind of stand up and hold your ground, because it's always tough to be the first person to, stand up against sexism in an industry, right?
I think you bring up a really good point. I had a couple of instances myself. I'm a managed broker, but one of our agents came to me and talked to me about how they were treated at a showing, and literally the other agent, behind her back, and the other realtor heard how they would like slap that bitch across her face. And, wow. I don't know that if that story was told to another person at management, whether they would have reported it or how they did it. But because, it was so offensive, We put together the complaint, and that person got penalized, and and I think it's these moments where people have to stand up and say there's something wrong with this and not just accept it. That's really important for us to do as women, because we face so many different things, and a lot of time you just let it slide by because you think it's normal, or there's been so many, at least here in our local market, like a lot of kind of perverted messages and things like that going to lots of women, and these are things that maybe have been happening for a long time, but I think now it's getting people used to saying, hey, this is not right. You shouldn't be having these things come up on your phone. It's an invasion. And so, those types of things, to keep on speaking up and saying that these things aren't right, can start to make these slight changes, I think, of, what people will tolerate and what's acceptable, right? So
bringing awareness, right?
Yeah.
Like the first step is, people being aware of what's happening. And I think when, some of those examples you've brought to light, like it's just so obviously wrong, right? And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, or like that behavior is just like not okay, not acceptable. And then there's just so many different variations and nuances that can happen where, sexism can come out. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. You need to, in situations where something is wrong, you've got to stand up and make a stand against it, because things won't change unless we do something about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Are there commitments that, Noella, that you've made to kind of encourage diversity and support other women or other types of diversity in your life?
I definitely, my commitment has always been to help women dream bigger. Like I said, my mom owned a restaurant when I was a kid, when I was growing up. So I saw her working day and night. I used to be there at 10 years old, helping her, bake things for weddings and stuff like that. So I know that a woman is a very powerful force. What I do now, I've been doing for a lot of years now, is to help women in the village in Rwanda. That's where I was born. I was born in Rwanda. And I was privileged to come from a middle-class family, so I was able to go to school. But there's a lot of kids in the village that don't have that opportunity. They can't go to school. They don't have running water. They don't have electricity. So what I have done is one child at a time, boys or girls, to help them go through school. Actually, the one I'm helping right now, she is going to school, and she was sending me videos of her village. And you can see how happy she is, like with so little, I'm like, here we run out of water for 10 minutes, hot water, and we are crying. Over there, she's like, we have to go fetch water like 10 minutes from my house. So just the fact that she can even use the phone, and she's in the village, she has Wi-Fi, and she's like, without you, I couldn't have the opportunity to do that. So that's my goal, to continue to do that. Real estate has been good to me, gave me the opportunity to be able to continue to help those kind of people. And I think going forward, even in real estate in Toronto, I don't have a team right now, but I'm working on building a team, and hopefully a women team. It's just a challenge finding the right kind of fit, but that's definitely what I'm working on, to try to empower more women like myself to get into the business. That's
wonderful. I love how much of a giving heart that you have, and I think the more that you give, the more that you get back in life in general. How about yourself, Frances, and what have you been doing to encourage diversity?
Yeah, so we, my partner and I, have been running our team now for, like, we merged our teams back in 2015. And so our team as it exists today has sort of been running now for about 6 years. And we've always been trying to create an environment that was really, allowed our agents to flourish. So whether they were male or female agents, although we do have, we're probably about a 50-50 split agents wise, although all of our staff is women at the moment. We've tried to create an environment where we can just be really, really supportive, focus on mentorship, focus on coaching, focus on training, and create an environment where people can flourish in real estate without sacrificing, so much of their personal lives and so much of their family. And that's kind of been our focus, since we started. And I think it's just been, it's been really sort of successful for us and worked really well. And, it was all about, finding finding the right fit with everybody that we brought on board and into our group. And we're almost like a family. We work really closely together, and it's really nice. But it's basically arisen out of just a real focus on a mentorship and a growth and a mindset where, just like you said, Arlene, like whatever you give, you get so much more back. And so we've really just tried to be so open. We have an open door at our brokerage. Any agents who, are just curious about, what we do, or just need some advice about, the business in general, we've always had an open door policy, and we always take the time to listen and to counsel, and to sort of assist that way.
Great. And I'm sure what you're doing is starting to build, like, people are innately going to get that success for themselves. But what do you think it will take to get more female realtors amongst the top 1% producing agents?
Personally, I think it's all about role models. So like it almost like builds up steam, right? So the more role models you have, in the top tier of agents, the more, or female role models, I should say, like the more it demonstrates to other female agents that it's possible. But I do think that like the one thing that tends to hold us back more is that, females do still tend to take on more of the family responsibilities. And, not that means, a female agent with a family can't be successful, but sometimes that means that they make the conscious choice not to strive for, maybe the top 1%, but the top 10%, because they're maybe making that decision to, dedicate a certain part of their lives to their families, and to just sort of maybe not, take that time, into their career instead. But personally, I think that it's entirely possible to be in the top 1% and have a family and do all of that, as long as you're in the right environment where you can succeed. You have to have the right supports. So I think it can be extremely challenging for like a solo agent, a solo female agent, to be in the top 1% and have all of her family obligations at the same time. Like you end up you need to have the right people around you to support your growth and support your success.
So then, Noella, as you're a single agent right now, thinking about growing the team, what do you think it's going to take to get more women in that top 1% bracket?
I definitely think we need to take more risk. I'm a single agent. I do have a buyer agent on my, that I work with. I think for me, I don't know why I didn't build a team. I guess because I'm a control freak, maybe. I just need somebody like myself, and I know it's not easy to do that. So I know I need to let go. Like Francis is saying, I don't have a family right now, but I know for sure down the line, if I do get married and have a family, I cannot do this the same way I'm doing it. So I definitely need to just kind of have people that I trust, and I can say, you know what, this is what you need to do, and just trust that it's going to be done, because I don't think I can succeed alone. I have done well, but I know I can do so much better. I know I can do so much more, because I can only leverage myself so much, like especially now that I'm driving all over the place. If I'm not on the listing side most of the time, which is where I would love to be, but this year is more of a shift. Last year I was more on the listing side. So a lot of my clients don't want to sell because they have no places to go. So I am finding myself more on the buyer side, and I'm definitely drained. So I can't consistently be in the top 10 in my office like I used to be, and still, make the same amount of money, and still have family time, and still have, it's a lot. So I definitely feel that this is the time for me to leverage and make a team.
Any final thoughts that you want to share with everyone who's joining us across Canada?
What I would share is that dreams do come true. And I came to Canada in 1997 as a refugee with my brother. My parents sent us because we had a genocide, and they said, we hope you're going to go there and, try to make a life for yourselves. We were very young, but, I remember the first time it snowed. I cried. I called my mom. I said, I want to come back. It's really cold. I can't stay here. I don't have the right jacket. I don't even know what to do in the snow. And she said, no, just hang in there. So I know that there are some challenges that happen. And to any young women or men wanting to get into the business, it's been a great business if you work hard, if you surround yourself with amazing, like-minded people. There's a lot of amazing people in this business, and it's definitely been a great business for me. I'm so glad it chose me, as I say. And yeah, the sky's the limit.
Thank you, Noella. And Frances, how about yourself? Any final thoughts for those joining us across Canada?
Yeah, I think, real estate is such a fantastic career. Like Noella said, the sky is the limit. You can honestly be as successful as you want to be in a career like real estate. And, all you need to do is decide where you want to go, put your mind to it, and then invest in yourself, invest in your education, invest in your learning, invest in your environment, find the right people to help you. This does not need to be a lonely, solo career. Like even just the networking that takes place these days compared to, Noella, when you and I got into the business, 15 years ago, like there just was not the same sense of community, at least in Calgary, amongst agents. And now, I mean, realtors get together, they share, they collaborate, whether they're working together or not. And, whether you choose to work alone or whether you choose to work in a group, either way, learn from your peers and learn from those that have experience before you, and, invest that energy into learning and into growing, and you can honestly be as successful as you want to be.
Wonderful. Well, we have two fantastic ladies here. So now you've got a friend out in Toronto, as long with Calgary, that you can reach out to when we need helps with our clients. Really appreciate you spending your time and sharing with us your stories. And I learned a whole bunch today. So I really want to thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure.
Bye.
But we got Amy now, so I'm gonna segue a little to Amy, and maybe on the same sort of a tangent. It's about what kind of advice you might give to a fellow woman might be struggling with sexism or anything like that on the job.
Ultimately, what I want to say is it's important to keep a very professional image. I mean, if you want to be respected as a female in this industry, what you do on your social media, how you present yourself when you see a client, how you dress. It's all in the details. So, I mean, with my group, I always ask, please have your social media covered, look like a professional. We try to keep it black, white, blue, beige, we just want if you want a professional image and you want to be considered, you want to be respected, you have to show it and demonstrate that. So the most important part is, play the part. You're not dressing for yourself, you're dressing for the clients. So, when I was younger, I used to put my hair up in a bun and put some glasses on so I could look a little bit older when I started when I was 19. Now, luckily, I'm almost 40. So I don't have to do that anymore. But, it's very, very important of how you present yourself, how you speak. And don't discard the fact that social media platforms are really basically like a diary that you're showing the world. So, if you don't present yourself in that kind of sophisticated manner, you won't be perceived that way. So that's one of the things that I can suggest. Also, the message that you say going out there, and when you speak to other collaborating brokers, I was really, really, and I still am till today, very keen on a professional matter, emails being written professionally, taking the time and energy it is to show and demonstrate that you're a professional. And then the proof is in the pudding, you're respected, and then you gain credibility, and that's the way to do it. So I always tell brokers that, and it's like the blind leading the blind oftentimes, maybe you should have mentors that have been there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a system that works, and then you can cater it to your own style. But there's a consistent method of achieving results and that have proven to be successful in this business. And people mimic each other. But what you can do is make it your own personal touch to it. That's what I'm saying. And, don't listen to too many people left, right, and center. Because like I said, it's like the blind leading the blind. You can just learn from your mistakes, understand what's important, and then keep on, just rectifying and keep on being persistent. Persistence is key, and tenacity. And again, your image is very important. So when you're starting off, it's very challenging because you're new to the business and nobody has the confidence in you. So you got to build that confidence, and you have to do something that differentiates you from the rest. Other people say, well, I'm a fantastic broker. I sell $100 or $200 million a year or more, and you should be hiring me. When you can't do that, you say, listen, I have all the time in the world to dedicate myself to you. You're my client. And although that, you just distinguish yourself completely differently, saying that I'm going to give you a personal care, personal attention, and then educate them. This is one thing that people are not doing enough, I feel, right now, is educating the clients on what's actually the market, what's going to happen and what to expect. So, find the right role models and keep pushing away at it. I think that's going to be the one, that's going to be the level, that's how you're going to reach the success level you want. And you also have to have objectives and goals. And I'm really strong on writing things down. Even Harvard Business School says that if you write something down, you'll have a 500% chance more of achieving it. Well, it's true. It's kind of like a roadmap that you're drawing for yourself. And, your brain will naturally recognize these opportunities as they come about. So write things down, write objectives down, write 1 week goals, write 6 month goals, write 1 year goals, write 3 year goals. Take your life into your own hands and make it something of value. And you can demonstrate it to yourself. It's not how you demonstrate it to others, it's what you do for yourself. Sometimes people are late. This is really, really the big no-no in real estate. You got to show up on time. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're already 10 minutes late. So find ways to, change your time on your watch, do whatever you need to do to adjust yourself so that you're not late. Pretend the appointment's at 1 o'clock when it's actually at 12:30. You got to trick your brain. There's a consistent bad habit that you have to break. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And also when I refer to the fact of don't listen to everybody. And one of the things when I started when I was in real estate, I had very limited business available to me. So sometimes I would take a listing that was about an hour and a half or 2 hours away. And then sometimes I would take a listing the other way, south. So either 1 hour north or 3 hours south. And then everyone in the city with all the brokers were like, Amy, you got to focus on an area. What are you doing? You're all over the map. It's not how you do real estate. You're not supposed to sell in the South Shore and sell a triplex in Rawdon. But needless to say, I didn't listen to them and I continued. And now we cover the whole island of Montreal, up north, South Shore, suburban markets, even Quebec City, the Laurentians, and now we're selling properties in Florida, all across the world. So you limit yourself, you listen to people, you're going to be blindsided on what reality is. And now we have 18 brokers that are working, 18 people that work on our team, 14 of which cover the whole island of Montreal. And we've really broken it down to a perfect science. So you know what, those brokers that told me back then, hey, focus on one little area or one market, I think they're limiting themselves because, there's a larger scale, there's a larger world out there.
Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing with us their insight and knowledge into how they became such successful career women in real estate. We now have friends in Toronto, Calgary, and Montreal where we can send our clients and they can send their clients over to us in Vancouver. Thank you again for joining us in our WOO event today. Now for our keynote speaker for today, the Honourable Janet Austin, who was sworn in as the 30th Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia on April 24th, 2018. Prior to this appointment, she spent 15 years as the CEO of the YWCA for Metro Vancouver, one of the province's largest and most diversified nonprofits organizations. Raised in Alberta, her honor spent her early years in public service and worked in regional planning, public consultation, and communications for the provincial government. She eventually moved to British Columbia and she began working with BC Housing and discovered her passion and aptitude for public office. Her honor has served as Executive Director for Big Sisters of BC Lower Mainland and actively volunteered for many organizations in the commitment of helping improve the lives of others, as well as serving on various boards ranging from TransLink to the Women's Health Research Institute. As Lieutenant Governor, she has identified 3 key themes for her mandate: the promotion of diversity and inclusion, democracy and civic engagement, and reconciliation. Please welcome Her Honor Janet Austin, the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia.
Peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt, and I wish to thank them for the privilege of living and working on these lands. So I will say in Sinchothan, Aitzquaicho, Stelacha, Aikwanas Kwanagahela, which means, good day, dear friends. It's wonderful to be among you today. And I mean that most sincerely. I'd like to thank Arlene Chang and my friend Sandy Logan, who I believe works with you, for inviting me to join you, and also Morgan Brown for your really outstanding leadership and for convening this group. And also to the panelists, very much appreciated hearing your perspectives, the sharing that you did of some of your personal experiences. And just to say, I completely empathize with the experience that you're having. I've had a long career in a variety of different, often very challenging roles, and I do completely empathize with what you're doing, but I think this is terrific. Some of you may know I've actually had a longstanding commitment to advancing women's equality and women's leadership. And often when we talk about women's opportunities in business and in leadership, we tend to think about what the woman, the individual, needs to do for herself, and also what the workplace should provide. Now, those things are important, but they're only part of the answer. And I think we need to recognize that the biggest challenges that women face are systemic. They flow from deeply ingrained cultural expectations about the roles of women and men in the workplace and in the home. And so the key example of this, of course, is the imbalance in unpaid care and domestic work. It's undeniable that women are now fully integrated in Canada's formal economy and have moved into the most of the previously considered to be male domain roles. But men have yet to assume responsibility for their share of traditional women's work in the domestic sphere. Now, I'm not being critical of men here. These are simply facts. And one researcher describes this as a remarkable inelasticity in men's contribution to household tasks, which is not affected by social class, number of children, employment status of the female partner. And this has changed actually very little in something like 40 years, although I will say there's positive movement in terms of younger men. The undeniable assumption is that in our culture, it's viewed that women should continue to assume the prime responsibility for the caregiver role in families, regardless of the employment status of both partners. Now, as we heard from Morgan, this has definitely been exacerbated by the pandemic, and women have been negatively affected by the circumstances over the past year to a much greater degree. So a little bit of a reality check here. Women continue to assume prime responsibility for domestic and caregiving work. So that is at two-thirds of the total work. So 1/3 by men, 2/3 by women generally, and very little change. Harvard Business Review tells us that the higher women climb up the corporate ladder, the fewer children they will actually have. And the reverse is actually true for men. And we see a similar sort of a split here in terms of earnings. Women who are childless tend to, and over 45, tend to actually out-earn their male counterparts. But women with children, the reverse again is true for that. So again, motherhood is a predictor of less economic achievement. And so, my fundamental view is that we will never truly achieve equality in the workplace until we achieve equality in the home. Now, I want to say here, again, I don't mean to blame men, because men and women, I think, are subject to the same pressures, but in reverse. So women often feel criticized if they don't assume the lion's share of the responsibility for childcare and domestic work, and men feel pressure not to. So some recent surveys of younger men have demonstrated that actually men are quite keen to play a stronger role in the care of their younger children, want to be more involved in family life, but they fear stigmatization. And so they're less likely to take advantage of those opportunities like parental leave or daddy leave, which is available certainly in a number of contexts. So these things are changing, but the change is actually moving, I think, a lot more slowly than we might hope. I will say, however, that the pandemic is having an interesting effect, and negative as some of the consequences for women are, there are also some positive bright spots. So, for example, 2 recent studies have just come out that show positive outcomes for men of spending time in the pandemic, because they have spent more time with their children and their families. They've had meals together, more playtime together, less commuting. And that has had a positive impact on their physical and mental health. They're healthier and happier. It's better for their children. It's better for their families. It's better for their communities. And we're also seeing a fairly significant number of men who want to establish that as a new normal and create a bit of a new normal in terms of that split in work time and family time. So that's very positive, and that needs to be, I think, encouraged. That information needs to be shared. Also, in terms of the pandemic, I think you all know that there has been research, very strong, well-established research emerging for the past 10 to 15 years about the benefits to organizational performance of gender equality in the workplace. And so Organizations that value diversity and have a critical mass of women in CEO, suite, and board roles outperform those that don't on almost all measures, including financial. We also see that many of the countries that have had the most effective responses to the pandemic have female leaders. So Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand is an excellent example of that, and there are certainly others as well. And then finally, I want to point you to some interesting research that McKinsey has done. So people will often comment sort of intuitively on their perceptions of the differences in male and female leadership. So you have these very generalized comments about men are more, women are more caring, men are more assertive. But McKinsey and Company has actually done some serious research around this. And they've identified 9 leadership qualities that improve organizational performance and are particularly important to an organization in managing periods of change and uncertainty. So think the past year, the pandemic. So those qualities, there are 9 of them. Of those qualities, women use 5 more frequently than men. And those are things like people development, expectations and rewards, role modeling, something we've heard a fair bit about this morning, inspiration, and also participative or shared decision-making. And so these are things I think that you see as being very valuable in your industry. There's 2 qualities that women and men use equally, and those are intellectual stimulation and efficient communication. And there are 2 characteristics that men use more than women, and those are individualistic decision-making and control and corrective action. Now, I'm not saying that any of these qualities or characteristics are more important than others. They're all valuable and they're all needed in different contexts. When you have a crisis, you need somebody who's going to say, I want you to do this and I want you to do that, and be able to move quickly. I also believe that these qualities are not innate to men or to women, but rather they're a function of our social conditioning, how we've been trained, the expectations that our society and our culture have for us. But these are also qualities that can be practiced and learned and applied when needed. So I think this is an important lesson from the pandemic, and an important lesson when we look at research like this, and that we see that we can be more effective in our organizations, in our countries, if we look at the research and we're prepared to say, yeah, these are qualities that will actually help us. We want to create the conditions where they're encouraged, where they're practiced, where people are educated around the positive benefits of using them. So also in terms of sustained success, I have one other sort of research example that I thought I would share to you. Harvard Business Review, and this goes back quite a number of years, I'd say about 10, 15 years, but did a review that looked at people who are stars in the financial services industry. And what they wanted to ascertain was whether these people could replicate their star performance if they moved into a different organization. So how important was the context they were in to their success? And they found that generally people do not replicate their success. So they don't take that success with them into that new context. So that was generally the case, except for one group. And the group that was an exception are women. So the question is, why is this? What they found was that women's success depends to a much greater degree on building strong relationships outside their organizations, rather than building relationships up the hierarchy. And this has generally been because it's been more difficult for women, particularly in male-dominated organizations, to actually build those relationships up the hierarchy. So they have chosen to develop different ways, and those ways are very strongly relationship-based. So internal doors don't open as easily for women as for men, but they've been able to actually compensate for that. And that has allowed them to take their success and replicate it elsewhere. So I'm thinking there may be some familiarity. You may be relating to some of the points here because, of course, your profession requires a very high degree of control over your own performance success and requires that you be very good at building those relationships. So relationships, and you know this already, are kind of your superpower. And I think that's something that is reinforced by research, but I know as well that you will understand it intuitively. Finally, I want to say that at its heart, your discussion today is really about respect. And that is respect for women's personal choices. I would never say that people should work or shouldn't work, or I don't have particular opinions about how people should organize their family choices, their work-life balance. Those are individual choices and they need to be respected. So people make those choices within the family. My argument is simply that we have the best educated generation of women in our history, and young women are actually better educated than young men. But the social conditions that surround us make it difficult for women to fully utilize those skills, however they choose to, whether that's professionally, whether it's in public life, or in community life. And so I just believe that we need to support that vision of providing options and choices so that those choices can be made. And I think that what we do see is that when given those choices, women do make a significant, very important contribution in our workplace, contribute to organizational performance success, and also contribute very strongly to the health, well-being of our society, and frankly, of our democracy as well. I think this conversation is also about valuing the very rich tradition of women and men who in different ways and from different perspectives are working to build a society that is fully and truly equal and embraces women's leadership in all its manifestations. So I want to thank you all for being part of that. I've enjoyed being a fly on the wall in your conversation. I wish you every possible success in your careers, in your personal lives, in your community lives, however you yourselves define that success. I think these forums are really important. And I remind you also that you have each other. It's always valuable to reach out to each other, to rely on each other for advice and support and encouragement, just as you're doing today. Thank you again for the opportunity to join you. I wish you all the best. Take good care. Haichka.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us at our WOO event today. It was my great pleasure to speak with the panelists and share their insights. A great thank you to Noella Ingabire, Frances Dares, and Amy Assad for sharing with us their stories, as well as, of course, Her Honor, Janet Austin, the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia, for sharing with us her great inspirational stories. We hope that you carry with you today, everybody, the spirit of supporting other women and being there for one another. Thank you so much.